Your property is worth more than your bank says. How do I know this? I bought and sold thousands of properties for myself and clients, and I've worked directly with some of the biggest banks in Australia. And I've learned an interesting secret. If you took out a house loan, there's a good chance your bank has undervalued your property. But the good news is, there's a way to use this to your advantage. And if you act fast, this can speed up your property portfolio growth by years and save you hundreds and thousands of dollars. So in this video, I'll show you why your bank is probably undervaluing your property and how I use this strategy to personally buy over 150 properties by the time I was 33, and how you can use this same hack to save you up to $100,000. So let me start by showing you an example of how this actually works. So you're about to buy an investment property and you believe you've got an amazing buy based off data, statistics, and comparable sales. And hey, maybe even another bank has already valued the property significantly higher than what you are purchasing it for at contract price. Let's say, hypothetically, you've got an amazing property, you've signed a contract of sale. As you can see, this is a contract of sale. Now, on the contract of sale, we've got a purchase price of $500,000. Purchase price of $500,000. Now, let's say, as an example, prior to signing that contract, you're a smart investor or you worked with either myself or my team, and you basically got a valuation done from other major banks prior to signing the contract, and those valuations have come in, let's say, at $600,000. So we've got the property on contract at $500,000, but the bank, most importantly, one of the banks has valued it prior to signing the contract through a type of valuation known as a desktop valuation, a desktop val. Or there's other ones such as electronic valuations, automated valuation report, AVRs, and different banks use different valuation systems. Let's say we're buying the property hypothetically and we are going with a bank such as ANZ. All right, so we're buying the property, we've got a pre-approval maybe, or maybe we don't have a pre-approval, but we're getting the finance, we've signed the contract. Let's say this is the contract, we take the contract, we give it to our mortgage broker, and the mortgage broker then says the best option hypothetically is with ANZ. They lodge the application with ANZ. So essentially, they outsource the full valuation. A company picks up that request. They go to the contract of sale and they find the seller's contact details, the seller's agent's details, or whoever's details on the contract of sale that can essentially give them access to organize a full valuation on that property. So they call it, if it's through a seller's agent as an example, they'll call the seller's agent and say, hey, I'm the valuer, here to value the property. When can we inspect the property? And obviously it is more difficult to do that if there's tenants in the property, because then the seller's agent then has to coordinate with the tenants when that they can actually get through the property and take the valuer through and allow the valuer maybe 30 minutes to an hour to actually go through the property with a clipboard and value the property. Essentially, one of the main key reasons of why the bank is doing this, they want to make sure that the person is not getting ripped off. And let's say the property hypothetically is only worth $300,000. They want to ensure that they're not paying $200,000 too much, because if the buyer is paying $200,000 too much, and then the bank will just say, this is the bank over here with the money, the bank lends them money against $500,000 when the property, let's say worst case scenario, is only worth $300K, and let's say the person, as an illustration, borrows $500K, but the property is only worth $300,000, and then the person, let's say they default, they disappear, they die, they run away, something happens to the person, well, then the bank is stuck with a property that's worst case scenario worth $300,000, but they've got a loan of, hypothetically, let's say they borrowed 100% or 90%, it's 90% as an example, so they've got a $450K loan on it, right? So we'll use $450K loan, so now the bank can't get their money back. then the bank's out of pocket negative $200,000. So that's one example of why the bank actually does the valuation, to make sure you're not paying too much. If you haven't already read any of my property investment books, I've got them here. This one right here is a best-selling book, 30 Properties Before 30. You can get that one, or you can also get both. How to Buy 10 Properties Fast. This book, it's yours today for free. Click on the link. You can download the actual PDF, or you can get it sent out to your home address for absolutely free. The book's free, but you do have to pay $8 for postage, which isn't a lot of money, and it's well worth it. The next thing I want to share with you is what happens if the bank was always known to value the property at what the actual market value is, or what it would sell for. Let's say in this scenario, we actually buy the property for $500,000. We've got it on contract, and the valuer goes out there and they say, actually, the property is worth $600,000. Now, this is what I want to stress to you today, is that this does not happen. It very, very rarely, if ever, happens. If they did value it higher than the contract price, it would not be by $100,000. It might be by $10,000 or $20,000, which is very insignificant in the grand scheme of things. Almost 100% of the time, they will value the property at the time of purchase, at the time of contract, because they'll look at the contract, and then even if there is significant data to say, hey, this property is worth $600,000 or more, they're still going to have to value the property at $500,000, because that is what is actually on the contract of sale. One of the reasons of why that is, I want to take you through this example today. Let's say hypothetically, going back to it, you buy the property at $500,000, and in this scenario, they do value the property at $600,000. Once it's valued at that property and it has that in value and it has a valuation associated with it, then the bank must issue the actual loan against that valuation, not against the contract price, right? So we've got it, $500K on the contract of sale. We've submitted the application. Then the valuer has gone out to the property and they've said, oh, this thing's actually worth $600,000, which again, this would not happen. And let's say prior to doing this, you planned on doing a 90% loan. So you bought the property, you had property on contract of $500,000, 90% of $500,000, $450,000. That would be your normal 90% loan based off the purchase price. But because in this hypothetical scenario, they've now valued the property at $600,000, they've got to give you a 90% loan of $600,000, $540,000. Now, this is where the issues start to unfold, and you can see the reasons why banks will revert the valuation at the time of purchase, the valuation contract at the time of purchase. That's what we're talking about. This is why they'll revert it to the actual contract price regardless, irrespective of what the valuation is. Settlement down and adjustments. That's basically where, 1 to 2 weeks prior or a few days prior to the settlement, the conveyancer solicitor basically tallies up. What is this purchase looking like? What are the draft, I'll write that down as well, draft figures. So they'll give you draft figures, they call it. And that is essentially, it's like a balance sheet for that transaction, for that purchase. If the contract to sell price is $500,000, but now they value it at $600,000, so they're going to say, hypothetically, ANZ Bank have loan proceeds available for this transaction based off the new value of $600 and the loan of $540, 90%, then they've got $540 available. Now, the contract to sell still only says $500,000. So technically, your loan's going to be more than what you've actually contracted the property for, what you've put on the paper. So which means essentially in this scenario, if they were to let this happen, then the bank's going to be paying you $540 minus $500. They're going to be paying you $40,000 the bank's essentially going to pay you to buy the property. Now, before you get excited, this isn't what happens. They'll revert it to the contract price. Thus, for the previous reasons, to protect their own risk, if hypothetically they needed to resell the property and the person cucked it or died or went in bankruptcy or default, then they're able to resell the property, because if they died at 600,000 but the property contracted at 500, someone bought it at 500, how do they know that someone's not going to be able to buy it at 500,000 again? But it's up to you and I, or technically up to me, so I can share this information with you for free, to figure out why this happens, what we can do about it, and then how we can benefit from it, how we can use the information that we learn about the system to go out there and build a massive portfolio that's going to make us wealthy and rich and be able to take care of our families, etc. I'm going to show you what actually happens now of how to get the equity out if you buy a property that's $100,000 under what it's worth. And this is what I do. This is what clients have done. Thousands of clients that we've helped. And this is how part of the strategy that I've built my portfolio. And it has to do with a thing called loan to value ratio. Using the same stats that was previously on the board again. We've got a $500,000 property house that we bought for $500,000, but it's worth $600,000. They value the property, the contract price, the property settles. So we're doing a 90% loan, of $500,000, which means the loan is $450,000. The property, I'm going to split that up. The property settles. So even in this scenario, we bought a property for $500,000 prior to signing a contract. We knew that other banks had already valued it at $600,000, but we still bought it at $500,000. The value went out there. They said, yep, the property's worth $500,000, which even though we're like, this is bullshit, it's worth more than that. I know it's worth more than that, but at the time of purchase, they got them valued at the contract price, right? Contract price. Trying to make it very clear. The contract price. Let's say the following week, 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month, 2 months. It's up to you guys how quick you go back and try to get the equity out. If you have known that the bank's already valued the property at $600,000, well, I would make a move and do it pretty quickly. But, different factors happen. Maybe you have to wait 3 months or 6 months or 12 months, but right away, especially if you have known that the bank is going to value the property higher, such as a $100K difference, well, then just go back right away and get the property revalued. In this scenario, 80% of the time, this will require you to change banks. And 99% of the time, that's going to cause your broker to get the shits, because they're probably going to have to do the whole loan again, and they're probably going to lose they're probably going to get clawback for the original loan that they did. If you buy property with hypothetically NAB or ANZ or whatever it may be, they value it at $500,000. A lot of sometimes the internal policies of that bank, this changes from bank to bank, but often the internal policies of those banks say, we've just valued the property. Literally, we've got a valuation in our system behind the scenes only a few weeks ago, only a month ago, and that was valued at $500,000. So we can't go turn around now and say the property is worth $600,000 because we just said the property was worth $500,000 1, 2, 3 weeks ago. Sometimes that happens. Yes, that is correct. Well, then what do? Problem solve this into the next way to go. If ANZ or NAB or whoever you go says that, well then get a desktop. Trying to make it really easy for you guys. Get a desktop valuation from another bank. Try Westpac or CBA or St. George or ING or Suncorp or whatever. So you go back, let's say 2 weeks later, and you order the valuation with CBA or another bank, and it comes in at $600,000. You then have to go to your mortgage broker or the bank directly, whoever, and submit an application. They've ordered the valuation, so now you got to do all your loan docs again, fill out all your paperwork, loan application. Now, most importantly, the valuation it doesn't have anything attached to it like a contract of sale. It's just a simple refinance. Refinance, that could take a week, could take 2 weeks, could take a month, or whatever it may be. But it doesn't have a contract of sale attached to it now. So it's not hindering the valuation. All right, this is a good thing. So you go to the bank, they value at 600,000, and now we do a 90, let's say hypothetically, we do a 90% loan of 600,000. So 540,000 would be technically 90% of 600,000 is 540. So the old loan, which is 450, basically means that the old loan gets deleted, and 540 minus 450 equals $90,000. Let's say you had to pay top-up LMI of 10K. So minus 10K. So you still got about $80,000 out-ish. About 80 grand. To buy the property originally, you only did a 10% deposit of 500K. So you put down 50K, and let's say stamp duty and legal fees and pest and building and all that stuff was, say, 25K. So you're into it for 75K you put down out of savings, and then you refinance it, let's say 2-3 weeks later, up to the new value of 600,000, up to 90%. You can do this at 80%. You can sometimes do it different, or LVRs. This scenario is called LVR. If you don't know what it means, watch my other videos, but loan to value ratio, you need to understand how it works. It's one of the most crucial things to learn. But in essence, this is how it works. You buy a property, it has to be valued at the contract price at the time of purchase. Then you go back and you order evaluations with other banks. If you need help with this, guys, contact myself and my team via email or message, or give us a call on the office number, and we can help you organize valuations on any properties that you have, and we can help you get your equity out so you can buy more properties, and we can help you build your property portfolio faster and more efficiently together.